We all come to pray, going back for warriors, keeping the whispers away. In suits and in skirts, we're the rebels you say, talking about life and dreaming of a different day. On the back row we stay, in the back we don't sway, just let the sermon flow. We're on the back row.
It is time for another episode of The Cultural Hall. It is an Articles of News episode where news, old and young, bond and free, whatever. We'll talk a lot about news from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, including some news that we didn't even know was coming. Yes, I know that's sort of what news is, of course, but a big announcement today as we record and today as you're listening to it. So maybe we'll be breaking that news to you. I'm joined by the news wizard himself, Verlin. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon.
Now, people may be asking, what happened to everybody else? Is it just you and Verlin hanging out and doing news anymore? Well, I want to give you an update.
I was going to ask you. I need an update on the mayor. I need an update on all of the others.
Well, the mayor, he and I, we did a bunch with the first round of Hear Hymns, which, by the way, that's part of the breaking news. You'll get a bunch more Hear Hymns. And so we sort of did a lot, and then I was like, oh, I should give him a breather, and then it ended up being months. So he sent me a message and said, are you mad at me? Did I do something? And
I thought y'all had a falling out, something had happened.
Yeah, no, here's the deal. You need to know this. Anyone needs to know this. If I am mad at you, you will know it.
Oh, perfect. Good.
I have zero ability to not make it known that I am mad at you. Like,
that is a good quality.
I don't know, because I really lean into you knowing how mad I am at you if I get mad at you.
Hey, I'd much rather have that than be totally clueless.
Sure, absolutely. Agreed. But I'd much rather that I deal with it in a responsible, adult, and mature way, which I never have whenever I've been mad.
I'm going to have to test this out sometime. Now I have to get rated.
Please don't. Please don't. You don't want it. You don't want it. Additionally, so like Annette, I just heard from Annette the other day. She's been busy. She's got her YouTube channel that's just taken off. It's done really well for her, plus summertime and craziness and all of those things. So she will be back. Megan the Mitch has been doing kids going off to college and getting back to school. So that's where she's been at. T-Dub, that is Taylor Westbrook. I was going to actually do this news episode with him, and I called him up and he said, and I assumed what he said was, I've lost my voice and couldn't do it. So
laryngitis.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He says it doesn't happen very often, but we'll get him back again.
Happens to me once a year without fail, usually the end of January.
If for you lose your voice?
I lose my voice for a week. The family waits on pins and needles till that day, and then they can say anything they want, and I can't respond.
I was wondering, so Berlin's family does a calendar as a Christmas gift that they send out to everyone. And I didn't understand because that week in January is marked Paradise, and it's for an entire week, and I didn't know what that was about, but now I'm able to be made aware of what that is.
Good label, yes.
Yeah. Interesting. You're traveling. You're around and about and all the things. Anything new or exciting that you want to bring?
I did something really cool last night. I hung out with a bunch of senators and congressmen last night at the annual Congressional Caucus for Adoption. And they have an annual event where they give out awards to kind of the top people that have made a big difference in the world of adoptions. And because I belong to a charitable foundation with some friends that we founded 15 years ago, we've done a lot of contributions to the area of adoption around the world and here in the U.S. And so we get invited every year to go.
Do you get a little discount if you decided to adopt? Because like Liz, normally it's $25,000.
Yeah, they have fantastic resources, many of them that are funded or have grants applied to them for anyone who's interested in adoption. So if you're interested, I would look up the Congressional Coalition or the Congressional Caucus on Adoption and take a look at their resources, including pro bono legal counsel and assistance for going through all that paperwork. It's really amazing what they do.
Okay, link in the show notes to that stuff. My wife and I probably never going to have our own physical children that way, but we have talked recently-ish about adoption. And I happen to know that I think it's like adoption.com or something like that, adopt.com. It's members of the church that run that particular organization. I can't think of what it is, but I know that that's kind of a significant thing as well. Good for you being all socially networked and connected and helping people.
Yeah, this organization I work is called Retail ROI, retailroi.org. And we've been funding existing awesome projects around the world for the last 12 years. I think we're now to the tune of having raised $10 to $11 million total. I think something like that.
Now, let me ask you this about that. So, like in your life, have you sort of said, hey, I feel very passionately about adoption. And so you've sort of connected yourself with that sort of thing. Have you been that intentional with it?
No, the Lord knows I'm not that clear of thought. And so 15 years ago, I was at an industry event with some friends, and we just happened to be sitting next to one of our customer executives. And he was talking about his experience having been a foster child and having been adopted and the great thing that it was for him. And we got a brilliant idea. Let's set up a 501c3 and let's start funding some projects. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And now it's got its own dedicated organizational staff. And we do some fun things around the world in Honduras and Congo and Haiti and Liberia, South Africa, Ecuador. We've done some things in Thailand and Vietnam. Some really, really amazing projects, and more importantly, amazing people I've been able to meet around the world. And they're amazed back because I'm one of the few members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that they know. And this is I won't say it's a Christian organization, this foundation, but everyone who's active in it is very active in their own churches, Christian churches of some kind or another. And so they've become very comfortable with asking me to pray or asking me to pick a hymn that we're going to sing, or asking me if they can come to one of our church services in one of these countries when we're there for a weekend.
Incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I've been thinking more and more about like giving, both of time and of kind of resources. And one of the things that is interesting to me, I get asked a lot because of the DJ stuff. Hey, will you come and DJ this fundraising event? And it's like, okay, well, I understand you're raising funds, but if I don't feel passionately about the particular cause, not that they're not great causes, it's hard for me to just be like, oh, I'm going to go do that for free, and then this for free, and then this for free. And the list of people wanting you to do something like that for little or no money never ends.
And as soon as someone hears that you're doing it, you'll be flooded. Right?
Yeah. So I have, over the last 20 years or so, because I probably didn't do too much of this before, I've tried to be intentional with different organizations that I have been affiliated with. But my wife and I had the conversation the other day. Get ready to send those just emails that you're like, I don't think that's the point, Richie. Contact at theculturalhall.com. So my wife, catching people up that may not know, not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we sort of talked about the tithing and or the donations that are given from our household abroad. And so the conversation started to veer and steer into, we, at least to this point, because I pay tithing in the way that I have just paid the 10% to the church, and that's it. And we hope and wish and pray that it's doing the things that it needs. And, I guess in some ways I'm probably a checkbox tithe payer, where it's like, what was the money I made? What's 10% of that? It's done. And, haven't given
that a routine tithe payer, right? It's just part of your routine.
Yeah. Not that I don't believe in the principle, not that I don't believe that God wants me to do it, right? He wants me to give, and all of it comes from God. So it's just a certain percent back, all the things. But I have the conversation came about that we were like, well, you know what? We don't really get to see any of that money in action.
Yeah.
And so the discussion
you go to BYU football games once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's no money from tithing that goes to football. I'm just making
just like there's no money from City Creek that came from
totally tithing, different thing. We can have a discussion about the football money someday.
Yeah, it's probably not, right? I mean, indirectly, because the school is funded by tithing. So the school,
but none of the sports facilities. I mean, I dug into this a while ago. None of it is
nerd, church nerd. But the discussion was had where is it permissible? Am I still doing the amount? Let's take, for example, let's say that I made $100,000 a year. Anyway, and then so tithing would be 10,000, right? So for easy sakes, let's say that. So
Oh,
then,
you're a gross payer. I see.
and we could have a discussion about that. So
Yep.
you've got the $10,000. So let's say now what I would do is I just be like 10,000 church, there it is.
Mhm.
Would it be? I know that it would be all right. So that's probably not the correct answer or right question, I guess I should say. But the conversation was had. What if I did 7,000 to the church and 3,000 to the church in a greater interpretation than just the organization and corporation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? And or could I still declare myself a full tithe payer? Now, I'm not going to tell you where I lie, although everyone knows where I would come down on that, because I don't think that God's like, hey, I don't think he's got his abacus or his 10 key, and he's like, well, you went a little skimpy in a year. And it's
Yeah,
not
I
even
think
that I'm
everyone
going
has to do
skimpy.
what they're comfortable doing, right?
Sure.
And I'm happy to share what I'm comfortable doing too.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So, but the thought is with some portion of it to be able to do it to needy people, organizations, but things that are tangible to us, where we adopt a family for Christmas and we have to go buy the gifts and we do it.
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not trying to skim. We're not trying to pay 8.5% because I want it to go back in my pockets. It's genuinely like praying and looking for the opportunity to serve people with that money and still contributing to the church as an organization as well. Is that something that I would be comfortable with, / is that, when you go to the meeting,
Yeah.
the bishop
Yeah.
at the end of the year and say, are you a full tithe payer? Is that something that feels honest to say, yes, in fact, I am?
To talk about that a little bit, I think it's really important and it makes a difference when you are committing funds or time to something completely outside of yourself. And particularly if you can do it in a community that you have interest in of some kind.
Sure.
And the foundation I work with is just one, but the nature of my wife and our family, we've always been involved in community activities and community charities and the like.
Mm-hmm.
And so adopting a family or doing any of those things, I would encourage everyone to do that. How you do it, how you fund it, comes down to you and your decision with the Lord. But of course, tithing and a generous fast offering have always blessed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've decided that I've got plenty, have had plenty that I'm going to share with others along the way. And I think you're right. I think the Lord doesn't stand there with an abacus and say, oh, you missed it by 57 cents. You got to go to the celestial kingdom. Sorry.
Sure. Anyway, so the thing for me, I mean, I'll be fully candid about it. We're going to try it for next year because I sort of know what I'm going to make for the year and have paid tithing. So tithing is done for the year, which is fun because I sent my bishop the meme from The Office with Michael Scott, where how he declares bankruptcy.
Yep.
The meme says, I declare tithing, because we changed it from a tithing settlement to a tithing declaration. And so I sent that to him during sacrament meeting this last Sunday when they made the announcements that you could start signing up with the QR code. Sent him the meme and said, I declare tithing. And he said,
are you admitting you don't have the faith that you might get some other work opportunity before the end of the year? Is that what you're saying?
I know what I'll make for the year. And
Yeah,
so
but there isn't another event you could book. You're totally booked through the end of the year. There's no chance of another event.
I and the federal government and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints know what I'm going to make for the year, so I know what 10% of that money is, and that has been donated.
Oh, good for you.
So, we're going to try it out next year and see. I'm going to see how it goes.
Good. I'll be interested to hear what you decide to support.
Well, it's fun. It's fun for me because I feel like, if for no other reason, and there are other reasons. One is I think that the ability to see the faces of those that you bless, I think it is something, if I'm being honest, sort of missing presently with just the donation. But the second is that it brings my wife in on something that I think is really important, and is at very least church adjacent, but at very most like a Christian principle that I want to have in practice. So,
Well, good for
you know,
you.
so we're going to do what we do.
You know what? I'm
Contact.
going to reach out and see if I can recruit you to go on one of our trips to Haiti or Liberia or
Period.
South Africa.
Let's do it. I'm not so much interested in Haiti because of how crazy I've heard that it
Come
is.
on.
I'll go somewhere safe. I'll go somewhere safe.
That's no fun.
You know, true story. True story. Back when we first went into Afghanistan, so however many years that was, I was working on the radio. And
First time or second time?
Okay,
90,
yep.
91 or
Second
2000?
time. Well, first time wasn't. That was 91 was
I guess
Iraq
it
and
was
Kuwait.
Iraq.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Afghanistan, early 2000s. I had the opportunity to go into Afghanistan. I worked the whole thing. We were going to be embedded for like 2 weeks with the radio. I was able to get like the flak jackets and all the things. And the guy that, because I was sort of writing coattails, I was having to organize it and put it all together and editing it and all those things. If it was going to go, he ended up chickening out. He said, I don't know that I can do this. I've got a family. If something were to happen to me, I don't know that I could do this.
I would have raised my hand to go with you immediately.
Yeah, it's a thing I wish that would have happened. So
you'll get another chance.
Yeah, maybe. I hope not. Not to Afghanistan. We're done. We're done serving abroad.
Yeah.
I was going to talk a little bit about the debate the other night, but that has nothing to do with this. So let's move on.
I'll ask you a question. One question. It's a yes or no question. Were you able to watch the entire thing?
So I got to it late, but once I sat down and started watching it, I did watch it until the end.
I will say I watched it beginning to end, but my better half got sick of it at one point and had to just leave.
Yep. Yeah. My wife would say things like, "What? What?"
Yeah, she kept asking questions, and I kept saying, "You really want me to respond to this question you're asking?"
Yeah. And my wife also said, "These are the best choices we have. These."
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and you have a unique opportunity in your Utah politics as well, which I won't go into.
Yeah. Jeez. I got an email. This from Carrie. It says, once again, I'm listening to your wonderful podcast. Just popped in today. You were acknowledging lots of people. I just wanted to say, here's something that I copied and pasted into my email. Just substitute my name. Basically took the email that I had read in the last episode and essentially echoed the sentiments. And she just wanted to let me know that, she in fact said, "Hey, great. Love the show. All the things. Carrie Farnes in a very, very hot, not so perfect weather in San Diego. I am listening." So thank you.
Subscribe, review, download, refer, everything, right?
Yeah, I would appreciate it very much, especially with the Patreon stuff, patreon.com/theculturalhall. We've had some people that have sort of fallen off. At one point, we had 100. That was the glory days of Patreon with us. And now we're in the middle 80s. I would love it to get back to 100 by the end of the year, not because that's going to make some magic amount of money, but, you listen.
It's the point. You're listening, you're enjoying it, you're having a good time. It's not much per month.
Yeah.
What's the minimum in per month?
Yeah, you can do $5 a month. So think about that. That is if we're doing, and we do, at least 2 hours a week of episodes. So that's 120 minutes times 4.5. I mean, you're easily getting 540. That's less than like a penny a minute. Come on.
Better than the math I was doing. My immediate thought was all you'd have to do if you're one of the, Mom Talk's secret wives is not have one macchiato per month.
Yeah. We'll go there real quick because I don't want to talk about that in the news. I ended up watching the whole series.
Me too.
Man, my gosh.
Season 2 is coming.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. What a couple of things that I just sort of gathered from it. It is still most of the news gatherers. Most of our news is just going to kind of be quick stories, things that have come up that are very, very quick. Not a lot of depth, except for a couple, because so much focus has been on this.
They've sucked a lot of the air out of the room, right?
Yep. But what I didn't know,
It's showing up on non-church related podcast shows, articles. The New York Times put an opinion piece out a couple of days ago.
yep,
My wife listens to a couple of pop culture podcasts,
mhm,
and they've been talking about it there. I think there's some interesting insights that are coming from it.
yeah,
Um, I think people inside the bubble are a lot more wound up about it than people outside the bubble are.
yeah. There is some bad parts of our culture within it for sure.
There
And,
are.
and people that will say, "Oh, that's not part of our culture." Oh, you are very wrong, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe it's just Intermountain West, but that is so many of the members of the church, at least here in the States.
And it bleeds out, right?
Yep.
We have people move back and forth. So yes.
The a thing that just as we sort of talk Gabby news around it, I thought it was interesting that Demi, one of the mom talkers, her husband, not only really a lot older than her,
Right.
but married to one of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and I think he was also on The Bachelorette.
Yeah. So he's had a three-peat now in reality TV.
Yeah, so I just, you know, I don't know, just think that about that. Where
Well,
I
I'll
go,
tell you what, I think it's interesting to look at some of the male personalities on the show. And back to your point about our culture, I think there's some good and bad in some of those personalities.
yep. Speaking about, of course, the one big thing is that everyone is like Zach, who is Jen Affleck, the original Jenny from the block. God, I hate that has been the focus of so many things. Super controlling in one of the episodes where she goes to Chippendales and he's like, I'm not sure that I want to be with someone like this. It seems like we have different goals. Like it was hard
Yeah,
to watch that.
it was. It was. Yeah,
But
and that's one thing pop culture has commented on is,
mhm,
and of course they will, kind of a strong male dominant culture.
mhm, mhm.
But I'll tell you what, Taylor Frankie Paul is not being male dominated.
No,
So
no, no. Additionally interesting and sort of tangential to that, I listened to an amazing episode of Mormon Land, the production
yeah,
done by the Salt Lake Tribune, where they
sure.
talk with Neylan McBaine, author of the book Women at Church. It's been 10 years since that book has come out, and we interviewed her, if not the first, one of the first people that interviewed her when that book came out. Find that episode in the link in the show notes. And she was talking about how she thinks that it's so ridiculous that we try and say that our church is not a patriarchy, because it is. And it's a fascinating interview for people that
I
are like,
deny the reality,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, we can spend a
That
lot of
doesn't mean we
energy.
ignore
Sure.
the women, but it's a patriarchal structure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it is things like that I think that people get so worked up about, where like when people will say, well, the LDS church is cult-like. And I'm like, yeah, it is cult-like. I mean, if you go by very definition of cult-like, not that we are a cult, but do you have things that you do in secret that you don't talk about? Do you, and on and on and on. Is it cult-like? I can get super worked up about it because I feel like you're inferring something by saying it's cult-like.
Right.
But I can say, yes, it is cult-like. Okay.
Yeah, it has some elements that some people may think are cult-like.
Yeah. You were less comfortable with that when I saw that one, Verlin. You're
I
like,
am.
patriarchy, all right, but
There's very little that's secret anymore.
yeah,
Very little.
sure.
If you go to lds.org, you can search on temples and you can see a lot of the things that culturally we kept, quote, sacred, but not secret
Mhm.
in the past. And so there's very little that's secret. There are a couple of things that are secret, and people are talking more and more about those all the time. So
Sure.
when I guess part of what I think of is when I think cult, I think, Jim Jones, and I
Sure.
don't think well, we proved it during COVID. Our prophet said we should all go get the shot, and a lot of people decided not to get the shot. It was their choice, and there was no downside in terms of church membership for making that decision.
Well, and I also think that the way that like we treat people that leave the church, I think is cult-like, and that's terrible. That's just a cultural thing that we do. But that is
Totally.
very like,
Absolutely, you're
don't
right.
talk to them.
Yeah.
That's so very cult-like. Or people that leave and then, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that's not codified. That's culture
Yep.
completely, and we need
Yeah.
to change that. Absolutely.
Yeah, geez, I know how to strike a nerve with Verlin, that's for sure. Let's take a quick break. When we come back in the second half, we're going to do actual articles of news. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit lennondesign.com.
Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. I want to start here. Quick programming note, because there were 9 new hymns that were released for the new Global Hymn Book. You will start to see, we never finished the Hear hymns from before. That's on us. You will get in the next day or two. Listen, busy. We sat down and did too many, and then we wore ourselves out, and we were like, geez, we could take a break. You will get an overview of the 9 new hymns that were added. I'll list them here in a second, and then you'll get individual episodes about all the new hymns. So just quick to mention, didn't know that it was coming today. But
that was a surprise, a real surprise. And we're breaking the news. Yeah.
Yeah, it's available in the online music library in the next 24 hours, so it may not even be there for you yet when you're listening to this. But the 9 new hymns are Amazing Grace. We've talked about that before and glad to have it finally be there. Holding Hands Around the World, Anytime, Anywhere. God's Gracious Love. My Shepherd Will Supply My Need.
That's a classic.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I know it. Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus. Behold the wounds in Jesus' hands. This is the Christ, and come, Lord Jesus. So as soon as this Sunday, those songs could be sung in your particular congregation.
Now, you made a comment in the last episode that none of them have been sung in your congregation yet.
Yep, none yet.
And same with me. In any of the meetings I've been to, and I've been to 3-4 different congregations in the last 3 months, I haven't heard one of them yet.
So I contemplated going back to that tithing thing of earlier. I contemplated taking a little bit of money and going to the print shop and doing it right, and then putting one in each of the foyers, or in front of the thing in the church, because maybe they don't know, or maybe we can't afford it. I don't know. I'm on the west side of Salt Lake, stereotype. Maybe we can't afford it out this way. I don't know why we're not doing it. Doesn't make sense to me.
There you go.
So that is that news story. I know I superseded the order that you maybe wanted to go. Where would you like to go?
Well, I want to go to, I feel disappointed that I've wasted having to read 383 words in a church announcement, only to be told that there is nothing new in the schedule of General Conference coming up.
Yeah, wasn't that hilarious?
The press release goes out. It's 4 or 5 paragraphs. I'm searching through to find what's the unique new thing. They could have just said one sentence. It's the same schedule as last time.
So for those that don't know, there will be a morning session on Saturday, October 5th, an afternoon session, and an evening session, which I guess was maybe the thing. Maybe we were
a general evening session, just like last time.
Yep. And then the 2 on Sunday. You can expect the Cultural Hall to share our takes on those various sessions on X. We did it last time. We've done it since X became a thing, back when it was Twitter. You can follow us
Yeah.
at the Cultural Hall. It's fun takes. Sometimes it's just sort of jokes.
It
It
is.
depends on
Now,
who.
my question is anyone going to yell at me? I'm going to be at the Sunday morning session in person.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
anyone going to yell at me if I'm doing the X thing during the session?
I don't think you should do it in person there.
Okay, just checking.
Well, and I think you'll get I don't think you'll get very good signal because that's
Oh,
20,000 people in the same place with their
That's true.
phones all auto updating because we don't make that.
I'm guessing great signal, bad capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And put your phone away and focus on the spirit, Verlin.
Wouldn't I be doing that at home? Come on.
Verlin. Would you be doing that at home?
Yes.
Oh, maybe get yourself one of those nice moleskin books and do it old school.
Oh, I can do that, but I haven't taken a written note in my entire business life on a piece of paper in over 5 years.
Wow.
It's all on my iPad. It's all on a notes
You could
app.
take your iPad and write notes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah. But if you start playing games, I hope your wife will knock that thing out of your hand and break it.
She won't be sitting next to me. It'll likely be my brother or sister sitting next to me.
You don't want to sit next to your wife during general conference?
She's not making the trip with me, at least so far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that's the reason, actually. I figured as much when you said she wasn't sitting next to you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so general conference. It's happening, everyone.
It's happening. Same as last time. Yeah.
Let's go. You wanted to do this story, and I thought that this was interesting. Opportunity missed, you said. President Nelson's 100th birthday, 99+1, the National Day of Service, and the U.S. Humanitarian Aid Strategy. What are you talking about?
So we had all these things that happened over the last literally week or two. We had President Nelson's 100th birthday. I finally watched it. I thought it was cute for the most part. I'm not sure.
Tell me what was not cute. What was not cute about it?
At my birthday party, I'm not sure I wanted opening and closing prayer and hymns.
Yeah. But it had to, right? I mean, you understand why that was the thing.
Yeah. No. Why did it have to? It was a birthday party. They had applause. They had clapping. They had performances. They had vignettes. I'm not sure why it had to have an opening and closing prayer. Why did it have?
Because then we would have the conversation right now. We would say, why didn't they have an opening and closing prayer at that church function?
Because it was a party, and you don't always have to do that. Yeah. It was we were invited to a family event.
Yeah, but it was for the entire church. The entire church was invited. We would have the discussion would be, why was there not a prayer? By far.
Maybe. At my birthday party, I seldom have a closing prayer.
Well, sure, at your birthday party, but do you invite the 17 million member Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Party. It was billed as his birthday party. We sang happy birthday, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
So anyway, personal opinion. But that was just one component of it. Over the last several months, because we knew this birthday was coming, the church has been pushing this idea of a 99+1, reach out to the one, serve the one, challenge everyone to do this for the one. Along with that came the church's publicity department or PR department wanting us to use the hashtag 99+1. And based on the feedback I'm hearing, that hashtag did not go viral the way they wanted it to.
Nope.
And there have been some comments within the PR group about that. And I think a combination of the birthday, the 99+1, we had the day of service, which is now on 9/11 for our entire country. It's not just a church thing. We had that day of service. And then the church in the US, at least from a humanitarian aid point of view, has changed their focus a little bit over the last year. A couple of years ago, the focus was on let's do small projects everywhere around the church. Each ward should have projects they support, stakes. Everyone should be working with different groups within your community and doing projects, whether it's a food bank or a coat drive or whatever that may be for your organization. And the church would fund some of those things. Well, in the last year, they've made a little bit of a turn, and they're much more focused on the large funding items. And we read about those in the newspaper, in the press, in the church news feed. Millions of dollars to Africa, doing great things around the world. But that has come at the sacrifice of taking away exposure and taking away focus on the small local projects.
Yeah.
And when I think about the one, and I think about President Nelson, and some of the things people said about him at his birthday, it was about ministering to the one, recognizing the one, caring for and helping the one. And I think we may be missing the mark a little bit in the way that we're doing all of this. Now, far be it from me to critique the whole church,
Sure.
but that's what I'm doing a little bit. I'm a big fan of ministering to the one.
Well, it's so hard because it seems like we swing, right? Big projects to
Yes.
the individual, big projects to the individual. It's just
Yeah.
hard to balance it out, right?
It is. It is.
It's
We gotta find the right balance there.
it's like a couple of my neighbors, not members of the church, and we do these big sort of sweeping, service projects or whatever. But then also, hey, I've got a bucket of cherry tomatoes. Would you like a bucket of cherry tomatoes, neighbor? Yes, of course. So which
So-
was greater? None. Doesn't matter. It's not that's not the question. It's, being able to serve and help out, some people some way and other people another way. And not
Yeah.
saying that one is better or greater or whatever. You have on your order of things that you wanted to talk about the secret lives. We already did that, so I'm going to interject this story.
Yeah.
I got an email. This is from Don Hollingsworth. Sent it into contact at theculturalhall.com. This is in reference to our conversation about Heretic, that movie, right?
Mhm.
The one that comes out in October. It's Sister Missionaries, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Dawn says in her email, the heresy, she says the heresy, so heretic. The Heretic movie is a thing, and it's always been a thing forever. And then sent me a link to this story, which I'd never heard about. This is in South Carolina. Do you know where North Charleston, South Carolina is?
Absolutely.
So there's a place called Northwoods Mall. Do you know where Northwoods Mall is?
I do not know where Northwoods Mall is.
My guess is it went by the way the most malls have gone, which is
Maybe. And for many years, North Charleston was not a place you wanted to be until just a few years ago when it's been completely redeveloped.
So that makes sense. So on the evening of December 15th, 1979, a security guard for the Northwoods Mall discovered the dead bodies of two elder sister missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in a vehicle in the mall's parking lot. The two sister missionaries had been shot, dumped into the vehicle, and left in the parking lot. Elizabeth King from Kaysville, Utah, and Jane Tusher from Fish Haven, Idaho, were elderly senior missionaries assigned to the South Carolina Columbia Mission and were at the time laboring in the North Charleston area. On the night of December 15th, 1979, it appeared, according to the police involved in the case, that the sister missionaries were ambushed, kidnapped, and then shot down by James Arthur Brown. He then dumped their bodies into a car, not sure if the car was assigned to the missionaries or it was a stolen vehicle, and left in the Northwoods Mall parking lot, where it was later discovered by a mall security guard. James Arthur Brown, age 24, had been recently released on $5,000 bail in connection to an attack on a local woman in October of that year. He was arrested at his parents' house in connection to the murders of the LDS missionaries. Their bodies were returned to their respective homes, and the two sister missionaries are considered martyrs of the LDS Church, being that they were killed while in the service of church proselyting purposes. I had no idea about that story.
I was alive at the time, but I don't recall ever hearing that at all.
Yeah. Link for that story in the show notes. Silicone Slopes, take me here.
Yeah, so Silicone Slopes, the article that we both saw was the title is "Are LDS Cultural Norms Holding Women Back on Silicone Slopes?" And the point of the article was because of the cultural norms of the church and because of priesthood meetings and young men meetings and in the past scout events or the like, that men would socialize outside of work and would build relationships that would then support them moving forward at work,
Mm-hmm.
which is true. I don't know what you think about this, but as I thought about it, I've been a professional for way too many years. I don't think this is just a church issue. I think the same exact thing could be said for people outside of the church.
Well, and I think it's different now than it has been in the past. But think about if you have a predominantly like LDS group of individuals, the decision makers up until the last, 10 years, the people in the room have always been men. So women that would be in the room, now this is in a professional setting, but in the majority of the time when decisions are being made, it is men in the room, and that's how culture of the United States was as well. Women coming into the workforce. Like, I think that plays into this culturally speaking, to hold women back, right? Do we know how to listen to women? Do we have women in the room? Do we only think that, if I say, oh, I only listen to male voices, man, that's ridiculous. But subconsciously, do we sometimes do that? Or do we throw authority to a man because that's how it is in other aspects of our life? I don't think
Well, maybe in Silicon Slopes, it's developing more slowly than in other places.
Sure.
But if I think about here in North Carolina at work, they made a comment about, men tend to go out to lunch with other men, or men develop friendships with other men and not other women. I would say culturally in the US, that's still true everywhere, not just in
Sure.
Silicon Slopes. And so it's not just the Silicon Slopes phenomenon, but it certainly is amplified maybe in Silicon Slopes because of the church culture.
So let me ask you this about that though. So if there's someone that you needed to network with, maybe it's a job transition or something for this organization, and that person was female in a professional setting,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that you would reach out to that person and say, hey, Janice, let's go to lunch. I'd love to talk to you about that. Yeah?
Yep, have done it many times.
Right. Do you think that the same is true if you were the Elders Quorum president, that you would say to the Relief Society president, hey, love to get together, the two of us over a meal and be able to talk about what we could do for the ward? The church is very weird about that.
No, you're right. And in church activities, I probably wouldn't do it. But if that Relief Society president was, excuse me, if she was, professionally in the same group that I was, and we needed to have a professional discussion,
Sure.
I would have no problem asking her.
Right. But I think that to me is more what I thought the kind of cultural things are, is because I feel like we get this sort of weird stigma about like being able to be in committees with women, having it's weird. It is a weird phenomenon.
I guess I've gotten over that, and maybe that was because other people have helped me get over it. But I haven't been in a ward council or a committee meeting in years that did not include a woman. Now, in a new calling I'm just about to be sustained for on Sunday, right, I may have to.
Sure.
But at least where we live, it's been very much a cultural change of involving women and hearing women's voices a lot.
Well, and that to me, I think, is important and something that I desire, right? I think everyone who has something beneficial to say about the conversation, I much don't care if it's a man or a woman. I think anyone should be able to speak into it. In a lot of ways, we're looking at the rising generation and saying, they have important input too. And it's like we're stunned that they have something, important to add to it. So yeah, to speak into it. But like I do think things like when you look at like Sunday school presidencies, right? They're all men at this point. And
yep.
And
Elders Quorum presidencies, Relief Society presidencies.
Yeah, they're all very just gender thing. And
primary presidencies.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can't now I'm speaking to which I don't know. You can't have a man in the primary presidency, can you? It's typically an
I haven't looked at the handbook to know recently whether that would be even possible. That's something I would love to push. That would be really cool.
Well, and I think technically, and going all the way back to the mention of Neylan McBaine at the very beginning of this episode, that's one of the things that she says is it's the handbook, at least at the time of her writing of the book, didn't say that the Sunday school president needed to be a man or have the priesthood, but it was just sort of an assumed thing. And then we talk about getting together in these councils where it's men and women. I know you don't worry about that, Verlin, and I know I don't worry about it, but I have met people who will turn against it, and at the heart of it, very good reason.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not trying to say there is not an issue. What I'm trying to say is the issue exists far beyond Silicon Slopes.
Sure.
The same issue exists everywhere in America, at least. And I've lived in Canada, and it exists there. And so we have to solve this everywhere, not just on Silicon Slopes.
Yeah. The thing that I think is always interesting though about that when you cross from professional to church, it's like I'm able to have a meeting with a woman at work without committing adultery. I can probably do that for a church calling, but we freak out about having
We do.
that way.
We
And
do.
I don't know. I just
We do. You're absolutely right.
so I mean that's how I took that article.
Okay.
Ago.
Okay.
Susan Madsen, though, if you're interested in anything around that, I didn't know this until the other day. Shame on me. She has a podcast. She's been on our show several times. We can share the links in the show notes for that. But she does a bunch of research in Utah and women and the church and being able to have voices heard and all these things. If that's the thing that you're fascinated with, make sure you check out
I love her research. She's done
that podcast
yeah.
and research. So then you wanted to talk about, let's skip that one. Let's go to your pun of, and I would walk 728 miles, and I would walk 728 more just to be a Mormon. Let's talk about this story.
Yeah, so the story is a fun story. It turns out there's a member of the church who's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They've had some serious civil war issues, lots of people in refugee camps in other countries. And it turns out this gentleman was exposed to the church when another refugee shared his Book of Mormon because he was no longer interested in it and said, "Hey, here's something to read. You've been saying you want something to read." He starts reading it, enjoys it, starts telling everyone around him about it, starts wanting to be baptized, and realizes that the closest congregation is almost 800 miles away.
Jeez.
And finally gets to the point that he's so impatient that he literally walks the 728 miles to be able to go to that congregation and ask to be taught. That's amazing. That's so cool that that's happening today. You hear about that when you read about, the Parley P. Pratt or Orson Pratt and some of the missionary work that they did, but that's happening today in Africa is really, really cool.
I think it shows the tremendous devotion and inadvertently, when you're sometimes like, oh man, I don't want to drive around the corner if you live in Utah to the church.
Do I have to drive 15 minutes to seminary? Come on.
You're what, half an hour from your ward probably?
No, we're only 8.5 minutes actually.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, same kind of deal where you just go, ugh, and then there's individuals that feel so adamantly about it. It's definitely a call to like, okay, all right.
Yeah, and what I love, which wasn't included in this article, but there have been several articles over the last couple of months about it, is in Africa, it turns out they're having baptisms like were happening in South America 10, 15, 20 years ago, where 50 people are being baptized at a time, or 110 people being baptized at a time. And given all the lessons we learned in South America, I think they're probably very high quality, great baptisms of people that have strong testimonies that are fired up and ready to take on leadership in the church.
Definitely. It's a tremendous thing. I'm trying to figure out, I think he was recently interviewed. I want to make sure that language isn't a barrier, but I'd love to have him as a guest just to hear,
great.
his testimony and desire to do that. Return missionaries in Ecuador. As soon as young missionaries from Ecuador return from their full-time service, they go right to a 2-day workshop that's hosted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, almost like a return MTC, which I think is a brilliant and needed thing.
It is fantastic.
You served a mission, yeah?
I did.
When you came home, did you do the thing where you sort of like just dumb-faced and went, I don't really know, what am I doing?
Well, I was a little lucky, and I have good parents. So I literally flew home to my father drafting me into a work assignment he had that took a full week. And so I didn't have time to sit on my hands. And then 2 weeks later, the semester at BYU started.
Nice.
I didn't get much of a vacation. I think that was strategically lucky to come home at that time. But I think this is fantastic. Every elder and sister should come home to this kind of post-mission experience and have a seminar. And if we can do institute online and seminary online, why can't we do this seminar online and teach them about education, employment, entrepreneurship, and adjust it to the culture and the place and geography they live in? Certain things are going to work in South America, others are going to work in Latin America, others in Europe, others in the US.
Yep.
What a fantastic opportunity. I would love to be involved in this.
It's also interesting to note that it's not just in Ecuador. Now it's in Colombia, as well as I think it was
Peru,
Peru,
Venezuela.
Bolivia.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like it's gone through South America, and they were very clear to say, although it's still in Venezuela, that's now part of the Caribbean,
Mhm.
not part of South America. But I think sounds like maybe it's a pilot program,
Mhm.
and I hope they take this around the world.
Well, and one of the things that I appreciate about this, especially because you mentioned the three sort of different areas: education, employment, and then entrepreneurship. There are these projects that they call like business in a box. So it's basically something you can do over and over and over again. It's like when if you donate at Christmas a goat to a family, and then they're able to get milk from the goat, and then you're able, it's essentially like a business in a box in goat
Yeah.
form in that way. They go through that, so you get the entrepreneurship, but then also the education piece of this is helping people know, understand, and be familiar with BYU Pathway, which
Yeah.
just continues to grow like crazy, and give people opportunities to get themselves out of that which they were sort of birth given in
Yeah.
tremendous ways.
I think the second piece, the employment piece, what I love is they focus on how to market yourself personally. I know a lot of people that are very uncomfortable marketing themselves. You have to do it because you're an entrepreneur and a business
Sure.
owner.
Sure.
I've had to market myself throughout my career, but people can be very uncomfortable. And you can teach some fundamentals and help people do that. Resume writing, job interview skills.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend a little bit of time and get skills that will benefit you for the rest of your life.
Yep. Nunchuck skills, boat staff skills. That's what I thought of when you were starting to list off the different skills.
Exactly.
This,
Football throwing skills, Uncle Rico. Yep.
if I could have just thrown that pass. This I didn't send to you as a news article. It's just sort of an interesting thing. So quick one off. 33 years ago, in the spring of 1991, Elder Scheibel from Germany and Elder Evans of Utah met as full-time missionaries in Pau, France. It was part of the France Bordeaux mission back then. Today, the Scheibels live still in Germany, and the Evans live in Ontario. They have sons that are serving missions together, and the two of them served together 33 years ago.
That is awesome.
Just
That's
a fun story. Just
That
a
is
fun
a fun
story.
story. Yeah, that's great.
I think about if I ever have kids and they had to serve with any kids that were nearly related to any of my mission campaigns, would be the worst experience they could have ever had. And I'm sure that those companions' parents are saying the exact same thing.
So I had a funny discussion with my father years and years ago. He went to South Africa on his mission in the late 50s.
Okay.
And it turned out, although they never talked about it, our next door neighbor, this is in California, but our next door neighbor was also a member of the church. He had served in South Africa at the exact same time as my father. They had never been companions, and neither one would talk in the same room. Neither one would talk with each other and about each other on their missions. And I always found that curious. I'm sure there's some story that they just don't want to have to share. I'm not sure what it is, but it always cracked me up.
That's pretty funny. That's something that I wouldn't let go, like a dog on a bone. Just what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Yeah, I might have to push that button. I'm
it.
running out of buttons to push with my parents because they've lived so long and I've lived so long. So that's a good one to push.
You just do the thing where you go, before you go, and they're like, oh, is it going to be something sweet? Is he going to want to know something, tender? Did I do a good job? Have I made you proud? All of the things. Nope. I want to know why you don't talk about this.
No, up until a couple of years ago, I still had stories of things that I had done as a teenager that they knew nothing about.
Sure.
That I shocked them with, and it was awesome. I love doing it. I've run out of those stories now.
Report back if you're able to get it.
I will.
Okay, let's go to okay, we got like 5 minutes, so we can dive in on some of these things. Let's go here. If you've got younger ears listening, probably not. Stop it, pause it, come back to this. A lawsuit alleges 2 members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Napa sexually abused children for years, according to a complaint filed September 4th. The plaintiff was groomed, manipulated, sexually molested, abused, and assaulted between the years of 1988 and 1992. The complaint names 2 members of the church, commonly known as Mormons, as alleged perpetrators of the abuse. One of the members is accused of fondling the plaintiff and engaging in oral sex with her when she was 4 years old till when she was 6 years old, according to the complaint, and raped her when she was 8 years old. The other member was said to have fondled and engaged in oral sex when she was 5 and 6 years old.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I mean, the things that jumped out at me amongst all of the terribleness here was it was 2 people who abused this young woman.
Yeah.
And it seems like she was in a challenged environment already as a foster child. And it seems like they did report it to church members. This all happened between 1988 and 1992, and they reported it in 1995. When her grandmother heard about it, and now the lawsuit is just being taken to court now.
Yeah. According to the complaint, church leadership, including bishops and counselors, never spoke with her to investigate the abuse or even ask how she was doing.
Yeah.
The suit accuses them of negligent supervision of a minor, sexual abuse of a minor, negligent hiring and supervision, among other claims. According to the complaint, the defendants had a duty to protect the minor plaintiff, including a red flagging system to identify and track sexual predators.
It's terrible.
Yes.
That's terrible. But I hope she gets the justice that's due to her, and I hope that her and those around her that were affected by this are able to get the help that they need to be able to move on.
And I the thing for me that I never want to do is I never want to look at it and go 1990 or 1988 to 92. Well, that we don't do that anymore. That doesn't happen anymore. I hope that and the reason why we do these stories, one is because they're news, but 2, there is valuable information for you to know. It mentions that she was, as a small child, having sexually suggestive behavior, a clear sign that something was going on. Being aware that just because someone, can go to the temple doesn't mean that they haven't done something like this, or that there's these people. And it's not to say don't trust anyone and all of those things. That's not what I'm saying. But it is to be keenly aware that it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, from anyone, anytime, anywhere, and never to just go, well, they're probably making it up. Oh, that he would never do that. He's insert whatever he or she may be. It's gross.
This is why I completely support the 2 adults in a class approach. I fully support having windows in the doors of every classroom. I think that should, this is horrendous. These are children of God. These are the most innocent among us. And, in 1988 to 92, we had less than 10 million members of the church. Today, we've got 16 plus.
Yep.
There's going to be a percentage of this happens to. And if we just keep our eyes and ears open, we may be able to help one child not suffer this if we're keeping ourselves vigilant.
I'm going to just rattle off 2 other stories, and then we'll end with the story about President Holland. So there is a new chaplain for the Air Force Reserve, Sierra Larson from Brandon, Florida, returned missionary. She is serving as of August 23rd. She served in the Dominican Republic Santiago mission, earned a master's degree in social work and divinity, is a licensed clinical social worker specializing in trauma. She currently serves as a Stake Relief Society president in Brandon, Florida Stake, married to Gunnery Sergeant Joseph Larson of the U.S. Marine Corps, mother of 3 children. All that sounds exhausting, and also the chaplain of the Air Force Reserve in that area. I would say hoorah, but that's the Marines. What do you say for Air Force?
I should know this. I have 2 Air Force officers in my family. I don't know.
Word of encouragement, Air Force Reserve. Yeah. Incredible.
Go Air Force.
And hopefully I'm going to be able to interview and just to get to know her, because she is just an amazing individual.
Well, the chaplain you interviewed just a couple of weeks ago was amazing.
Yep.
And the observations she made, I know You can reference it in the show notes in terms of the episode, but she made some references that apply to everyone, not just someone in a chaplaincy or someone working with a chaplain. She made some observations that if you thought about it, can change your life.
Well, and some have contended best episode of the Cultural Hall in a long time, if not ever.
Wow.
To which I said, geez, man, thank you. And then I go, okay, I can think of some highlighted,
Been some great ones.
some good ones over the years for sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Matt Harris episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm almost done with the book. And for anyone who hasn't read the book, it's not a hard read, but it's so insightful. It is so interesting.
And his book is called Second Class
Mormons. Is that
Second
what
Class
it is?
Saints, I think. Hold on.
Class Saints. Yep, Second Class Saints. You're right.
Forgive us, Matthew, for we know, Second Class Saints, Black Mormons, and the struggle for racial equality. So you can check that out. For my money, you've got the book right there. If you're watching on YouTube,
I've got my autographed copy in my hands right here. Yep.
Did you meet him? Is that how you got the autographed copy?
Turns out his sister is my daughter-in-law.
His sister. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I asked him if I could get one. I bought it and got him to autograph it. And now I can mock my daughter-in-law because she doesn't have one.
Take that, daughter-in-law. There is an article from the City Weekly, which is sort of one of these like weekly newspapers in Salt Lake. They do a lot of, kind of like underground sort of fringy things. I'll just mention the article.
News, the music scene, the art scene, that kind of thing, right?
The headline of the article is the LDS Church repeats the mistakes of its black priesthood and temple ban with its restriction on women and LGBTQ members. I don't agree with a large portion of what was written, but it is a worthwhile read if you are someone that values and I think everyone should, but that's my judgment, takes value from reading another person's writing and go, how do I feel about that? Do I agree with what that person is saying? I don't agree with what that person is saying, and here's why it's different. Or I had never looked at it from that sort of perspective. There is value within that article for that reason.
I agree 100%. And they actually name check Matthew Harris as well in the article.
See, look at us doing the same thing like they do, which leads us to this. I was pretty surprised. I've not yet listened to the episode, but LDS Apostle, President Jeffrey R. Holland, says that he wept over the BYU Musket speech, but stops short of apologizing. So you remember this was at BYU.
2021 at BYU.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know where I want to go with this necessarily. We'll link the original talk. Some people said it's overplayed. The musket fire, it was a talk wherein he also singled out, I think, a valedictorian of BYU who essentially came out during their valedictorian speech.
That's right.
The talk was approved by the church, by the college that he was going to be speaking in, but they sort of singled him out, and then in the wake, in the I don't know, relevance of timeline, the musket fire was shortly after January 6th. Perhaps an ill choice of words and all of that. But I find it absolutely interesting. It's the Church News, the latest episode of the Church News's podcast, where he says the following. Now, if anybody was hurt, and I know that some were in that exchange, then I was hurt. And I have wept. I have wept for those 3 years. And then the article goes on. Nevertheless, the former president of the church-owned school doubled down on the 2021's talk overriding message, which was for faculty to get in line behind the church's teachings regarding gender and sexuality. Holland said that he doubted, quote, anybody has had more people in an office, in a chair, weeping with them than I have in that administration building with kids who are struggling with gender issues. No one can say that I do not love them. He continued, but I am also and was then responsible for the direction of a university. I just wanted to get the supporting doctrine of the church across. So
Yeah, I think I won't say a lot about it except to say we all should take a look at messages we're trying to send, particularly when we're giving a talk or a presentation of some kind, and be sensitive to pieces of it that may distract or may not be taken the right way based on how we're sending that message.
Yep. But I also love, and it does, as the article points out within the headline, stop short of apologizing, and that could be an entire 10 episodes about the church and apologizing. We're not going there, but I love getting to know more about President Holland. It's why I'm looking forward to that article just came out today. It's a Salt Lake Tribune article, so it's paywalled if anyone's trying to get it. This will be as much as you get unless you pay for it. But you can gift articles, so why not gift yourself the article? It is interesting for me to have him be more personified is not the word I'm looking for, but to be able to know, oh yeah, I know that people were hurt by this and I am hurt too. Because without knowing that, you think Elder Holland, he went in, he said a thing and he said, get in line, and here we are in musket fire. And for many people, I think what hurt even beyond just the original, musket fire symbolism and or the relation and timeline calendar and all that with 2021, is that he was so very closely an advocate for so many people in that sort of realm that people felt this sort of whiplash of like, whoa, this is not the Elder Holland we thought he was. What's going on?
I felt safe listening to Elder Holland, and all of a sudden I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And the calling out of this other young man certainly was problematic as well. I think his name was Matt Easton, who gave a speech in 2019 at graduation. So I think it's unfortunate things that make the rest of the talk misconstrued. I've listened to the talk several times on my own, and if you take out some of those little sections, the rest of the talk is brilliant. And educational for all of us, let alone just the BYU faculty and staff. Sure.
Which you always have to put it in context, though, because the devil's advocate of me is like, well, sure, if you take enough out of enough talks. I mean, he gave a great speech that whoever is terrible. Yeah.
I'll take my ever optimistic view, which is this is just further proof that no one, including the Lord's anointed, are infallible.
Yeah.
Right? Although we may want to treat them as infallible, they are not. And it's unfair to hold them to an infallible standard.
Agreed.
On the other hand, I heard a saying the other day, someone said, clear is kind. So being straight, talking about difficult topics is the kind thing to do, although it may not be comfortable.
Yeah, to be unclear is to be unkind.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
And if you didn't feel good enough to listen this week, you will next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you.
Right here on the back row
of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.